Ever stood in that line at City Hall, waiting for your marriage license and thought, man, this could be me on the other side of this counter someday?
Right.
Well, lucky for you, today we're doing exactly that deep diving into the world of civil registrars.
Buckle up.
We're going through all those sources you send us, really trying to figure out, is this the career path dealing with all of life's biggest moments? Officially, is this the one for you?
It's funny you say officially because I think that's what people miss, We think birth certificate, death certificate, marriage license, it's just paperwork.
Right.
But a civil registrar, they're not just managing these forms. They are the keepers of these massive life events. They see it all.
Yeah, it's giving very much if these walls could talk
Yeah.
vibes. But instead of like a restaurant, it's City Hall.
Oh, absolutely.
City Hall has seen some things. And our sources, they definitely suggest this job, it's way more interesting than just like stamping documents all day.
Oh, for sure.
One source even mentioned a registrar who actually helped reunite siblings who'd been separated at birth.
Wow.
Talk about a real impact. But, okay, let's back up for a sec. Day in the life. What's that actually look like? Because we're not just talking about, like, I don't know, stamping certificates here, are we?
Not quite, although accurate record keeping, that's definitely like the cornerstone of the job. So think guiding people through legal processes, verifying information is correct, issuing those super important certified copies, birth certificates, marriage licenses, the whole 9 yards, and then of course keeping those records safe and sound.
Right, because imagine you need your passport or something, or you find out you're getting a huge inheritance and you need to prove who you are. Those documents are vital.
They are.
But then there's the whole technology angle that the source mentioned, and that's got to be changing things up, right?
Totally. Gone are the days of just those dusty handwritten ledgers in the basement, although I'm sure some of those still exist somewhere. But no, we're talking online databases now, electronic records, even digital signatures. You might be helping someone order a birth certificate online 1 minute and then issuing a marriage license in person the next.
Really?
It's a trip.
So instead of those handwritten ledgers, you might be the one managing the whole online system for these records. That's pretty cool.
It's wild.
But I imagine that comes with its own challenges, am I right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For some people, the efficiency of a digital system, that's a dream come true.
Right.
But if you're someone who loves that, tactile nature of a paper record and those more traditional processes, then this whole shift, it might feel like a pretty steep learning curve.
It's funny, right? You go into this thinking civil registrar, and the first thing that comes to mind is someone who loves order and routine.
Absolutely.
But now you're telling me being tech savvy is like a major part of the job description these days?
Yeah. It's true. It's that balance that makes this role so interesting. Because you've got, on one hand, the structured, process-driven side of things, right? But then on the other hand, you're constantly dealing with people. And not just people, but people who are going through some of the biggest, most emotional moments of their lives.
Yeah, one of the sources mentioned a low-stress work environment, which, don't get me wrong, that sounds pretty great.
Right.
But then they also talked about, like, dealing with grieving families. And those two things seem kind of at odds with each other, don't they?
Because they totally are. I mean, 1 minute you could be helping someone register a birth, which is all joy and celebration, and then literally an hour later, you're comforting a family who's there to register a death. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You're really there for people during some of their most raw, vulnerable moments.
Wow.
And that's why the guide stressed how important communication and empathy are in this role. It's not just about filling out the forms correctly. It's also about sensitivity and really connecting with people on a human level.
Wow. Okay, so we've gone way past paper pusher territory here. This is someone who's a part of these huge life transitions, even if it's just for a little while. But what about actually becoming a civil registrar? What's the path to get there look like?
Well, you might be surprised by the range of backgrounds that can actually lead you here. I mean, law, public administration, those probably make sense, right?
Yeah.
But the guide also mentioned social work, sociology, even anthropology as being relevant.
Anthropology. Now that I did not see coming.
Right.
Although, I guess if you think about it, the different traditions around births and deaths, marriage customs, it makes sense that you'd need at least some level of cultural understanding in this role.
Exactly. It speaks to the diversity a civil registrar might encounter. But one thing that's definitely universal is that attention to detail. You absolutely cannot mess up those records. They carry legal weight.
Oh, for sure.
And here's something else that might surprise you. This isn't a dead-end job. There are actually quite a few paths for advancement.
Oh, really? I kind of always pictured it as one of those you're in it for life kind of deals, Like once a registrar, always a registrar. So you're saying there's actually hope for our listeners, even if they start out behind that marriage license counter. Tell me more.
Oh, absolutely. You could move up into like a supervisory role within the registrar's office, even become a, senior civil registrar, overseeing a whole team, making sure all those birth announcements go out without a hitch.
Okay, so you could be the boss of the birth certificates. Sign me up. But seriously, what else? Give our listeners some options here.
You could specialize too, become the office expert on like historical records, dive deep into genealogy research. Some registrars, they even take their expertise to a whole other level, become consultants, advising on all sorts of things, legal issues, or the best practices for keeping records accurate and organized.
Okay, so it's not just about being a civil registrar. It could be a springboard into a bunch of different things, if that's what you're looking for. That's way more dynamic than I would have guessed. But let's bring it all home for our listeners today. What does it all mean? What's the big takeaway here?
It's about more than just paperwork. It's a stable career, yeah, but it's also a chance to be really deeply rooted in your community, and it's a job that can actually grow with you over time. But it does take a special kind of person, someone meticulous. Yes, that attention to detail is huge, but also someone who's deeply empathetic. You need that sharp eye for detail and the ability to connect with people, especially when they're going through some of the most vulnerable moments of their lives.
Like you're a guardian of these crucial records, but you're also a guide for people as they're navigating some of life's biggest changes. You're entrusted with not only the letter of the law, but also the weight of these really personal, really powerful stories.
Exactly. And that actually makes me think about something our sources didn't really touch on: the history of it all. Those records, they tell the story of an entire community. Births, deaths, marriages. They're not just individual moments. They're like threads in the tapestry of a place and its people.
Whoa, yeah. Imagine all the things a civil registrar must see over the years, all that history they witnessed firsthand. Talk about if those walls could talk, right?
And that's something to really consider. If you're out there and you're looking for a career that kind of bridges the past and the present, where precision meets compassion, well, maybe becoming a civil registrar is the next chapter in your story.
So much to think about. And that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of civil registrars. Thanks for joining us on this one.
Thanks for having me.